Hello guys, I'm John, I'm the Geeky Fanboy, and we return to the very first TV series review I think that I ever did on this channel. We return to The Umbrella Academy. Season 2 dropped a couple of days ago. I binge watched it over the weekend, so I'm gonna give you all my thoughts on it, and I'm gonna give a spoiler warning this time. I know the first time around I made it spoiler free, but this is season 2 and there's a lot to talk about, and I have thoughts and opinions I need to get out. So here is your spoiler warning. Okay, so last time I did this, I sort of went through characters 1 through 7. And I think I'm going to do that again, but before we get to the main characters, the Hargreeves siblings, I just want to talk about the story and some of the other side characters we meet. So the general story, I think, as far as I remember, basically encapsulates the second volume of the comic books. I haven't read the comic books in like over a year, so apologies if I mess things up. But as far as I know, it is a pretty good adaptation of like the basic storyline of the second volume. I know they did some of the stuff from the second comic already in season 1, but the general storyline of JFK getting shot and Five and everything and involved in the assassination. That is the basic plot of that, and I thought it was a pretty good adaptation. I thought it was quite interesting to see how, especially Five would deal with this as soon as he knew that, okay, this is the assassination of JFK and I was involved in that. I thought that was quite interesting. I have to admit I was a bit annoyed with the sort of rehash of the general storyline, which I know is sort of the whole gimmick of the second season, because they didn't avert the apocalypse in season 1, so it basically follows them into season 2 where they have to stop it now. So I get that they just have to redo that, but it just felt a bit too similar for me in regards to season 1, where it's basically just, okay, we got the siblings, we need to get them all back together again, which again is basically what Five is doing most of the time, not all the time, mind you. And apocalypse has to be averted. It's just in a couple of days, and Vanya is basically the trigger yet again for the apocalypse. And I know that they sort of have to do that since the apocalypse follows them, but I was slightly annoyed as to how much they actually retraced, also like story-wise, how many steps they went through again to basically get to the same thing we already had in season 1. But what's different is that we, of course, have an entirely different setting. Like I said, I like the JFK thing and the traveling into the past and the Time Commission. Time Commission comes back again, basically, as the villain. The Handler is still alive. I mean, big surprise, of course she's still alive. And I think she makes for a pretty good villain. I thought she was very intimidating, and I like the actress who plays her. I think she does a very good job. We have a new character who is connected to the Handler, namely Lila. I'm going to talk about her in a second. And we also have some new secondary antagonists, namely the Swedes. So let me just talk about the Swedes first real quick. I thought they were a bit boring, to be honest. Like, I do quite enjoy, the just serial killer, brutal characters who were just all out there, badass and killing people and all that. I like that, but at the same time, they're just not like Hazel and Chacha. Hazel and Chacha had so much character and so much personality, whereas the Swedes don't really have that, at least for me. Like, they don't really talk that much, and what do we know about them? They're siblings, they're Swedish, and that's it. I mean, the only sort of moment I thought was quite interesting is when the siblings start dying, especially when Allison rumors one of the brothers into killing the other one, and he has a sort of freak out about that. I thought that was cool. That was an interesting moment and gave them a bit of personality and individuality. But apart from that, I just didn't feel them. They also weren't as much in this as Hazel and Chacha were in season 1, so I didn't really have the same connection with them. So they really just were there to serve as, secondary antagonists who can play up the danger that maybe one of our characters gets killed, but they don't really do that much else. So I was a bit disappointed that they didn't do more with them. And since I already mentioned Hazel and Chacha, quick side note here. I miss Hazel. I was really excited to see him again in this second season. And I was like, oh yeah, he was a cool character, and I really like his actor, Cameron Britton. He's cool. And I thought he was gonna get like a sort of like maybe secondary little storyline in the second season. You know, not a main character, but I thought maybe we'd get to see him. But no, he literally just turns up in the first 5 minutes of the story. It's like, here, 5, the world's gonna end in a couple of days. Here, travel back into the past and stop it. And he dies. He gets killed by the Swedes. And nothing. He's just like, oh yeah, Agnes and I had a nice life together, but she died off screen, of cancer at some point. Here's the thing, boom, dead. Like, what? No, I thought it was a bit unfair because I really thought he was gonna be like a remaining character for the second season. Like I said, granted, not a main character, but I thought he would, you know, be in a couple of episodes at least. But no, he straight up dies in the first 5 minutes of the show, which I didn't really like because I thought they were setting up something with his character they were going to do, but not really. So our main bad guys, basically, once again, are the Commission, specifically the Handler, who survived her murder in season 1. And like I said, I do enjoy the actress, and I think the character of the Handler can be very intimidating, and I love those kinds of bad guys, or bad women in this case, that are like more, not necessarily violent, although she really is, but you know, who are more into scheming and use their intelligence and their words to get what they want and manipulate people. I really like those sorts of antagonists, and Handler works really, really well for that. I mean, we especially see this in regards to Lila and Five and Diego when they all get somehow involved in the Time Commission. I like that we get to see more of the Time Commission as well, how they work. We even get some like individual characters, like with Herb. I thought he was kind of adorable. I thought he was cute. We see how everything works. We see. I thought the board of directors was funny. You know, I already knew that this character would come up. You know, with the fish head and everything, which looks absolutely ridiculous, but at the same time, you know, makes sense in the world of the Umbrella Academy. I think so that worked quite well, and I honestly really liked the scene when Five just kills the board within like 10 seconds. That was brutal and badass, and I really enjoyed that. That was fun. Another character who is connected to the Commission and specifically the Handler is Lila. I'm gonna talk a bit more about her in regards to Diego in a couple of minutes, but let me just say that while I think she's okay, she isn't great. Like, the actress does a fantastic job, and you know, I can see what they were trying to do with her character, but I just didn't really connected with her on, like, not to a level where I really cared about her, because I didn't feel like I really knew who she is. And I'm like, oh, she's British. That's cool. Yay. And she has a bit of a thing with Diego, which I'm going to talk about in a second. But she's badass, she can fight, and she's got a bit of attitude, and that's it. And I just felt like there wasn't enough personality for her that I could like latch onto, that made me go, oh yeah, I understand this character, I know who she is. I do enjoy though her relationship with her mother, with the Handler, when it all comes out towards the end, of course, that Lala's been manipulated and the Handler was the one who had her parents killed, basically, which was obvious, but you know, I'm a sucker for like those kinds of manipulative, wrong kind of relationships that get untangled as the series progresses. I thought that was quite good. There is this reveal towards the end that Lila is one of the siblings, basically, so that she was born on the same day as the Hargreeves siblings, and therefore also has powers, and her power is that she can mimic any kind of power at any given point that is in front of her, but she can only mimic one at the time. Well, I think that makes her absolutely OP. Like we get that fight towards the end, and she's just OP, and I think it kind of is a bit of lazy writing as well, to just be like, oh well, she can do everything. Like, it's not even something specific to her or something very new. It's just she can do everything. She can just mimic it, and she's good at it from the start. And it's just thrown at you at the end. I'm like, okay, that's a thing now for some reason. Though I would like her to reappear in the third season, because I think she does have potential as a character, especially as if she became one of the siblings, basically. I think that could work if they would bring her back, because I feel like there's so much more you can do with her, which doesn't have to be connected to the Handler or to Diego. I really wanted to like her, and there was that potential, but I just didn't really connect with her. And there was this one moment where I had this exact realization, which I don't know which episode it was, but there's this moment when Lila threatens Herb at the Time Commission. And I thought, in this scene, I care so much more for Herb than for Lila, because Herb actually has personality, and he's adorable, and I feel like I know who this man is. And I was like, but I don't really understand Lila. But I do understand this minor Time Commission character who's been in this show for like 15 minutes. So, yeah, Lila, she's okay, but maybe she wasn't really my thing. Okay, and now let's go through all of the characters of the Hargreeves siblings, 1 through 7, and I talk about them as characters and their individual storylines they get throughout the show. So let's start with number 1, my boy Luther. I really liked Luther in season 1, and I know he wasn't really liked by a lot of other people in general or in the fandom, and you know, a lot of people didn't like him. But I thought he was a very interesting character, and I think I like what I see of him. I think it was a good idea to sort of take him back as the leader. He still has a leading role, but he shares it a lot more, like with the other siblings throughout this second season. I like that he's sort of, you know, beaten down and he doesn't really know what he's doing. He's just like working for a mob boss, and he does boxing matches and everything is a bit illegal, which doesn't really sound like Luther at all. So I think we meet a different man in the second season, who's been changed by his time in the 60s, and I think you can really see that. And even though it's a bit cliche, I do like the scene where he throws a fight because he's just like really upset and depressed about everything, especially about Allison. I really felt for the guy when he tries to find Allison and meets her husband and is like, oh, Allison's married. Oh, fantastic. I sort of felt for the guy there, and because I thought their relationship was really cute in season 1, like Luther and Allison, and I wanted them to maybe get together at some point, which doesn't really happen, but they do sort of share a kiss for the first time in this season. I'm saying sort of because he's actually trying to like make her breathe again, so I don't know what that counts. But you can still feel that there are some feelings going on between them. And I like that Luther is a bit more down to earth in this season. I especially like his like leadership dynamic with Diego in this season. They were very antagonistic towards one another in season 1 and sort of had to learn to work together, and I like that you can see this basically come to fruition in this second season, where you really feel like, okay, Diego also wants to take over leadership, but you know, they've already done all the bickering and fighting, so they are now working together, and I really like it when we have like the 2 of them, or like the 3 of them with 5 as well. And they are sort of the ones who lead the team, who try to figure out what's going on, and they're working together. And they have some really funny and also heartwarming moments. Like, especially I thought the scene when they get home and Elliot was killed, and they see the Swedish phrase and they just totally misinterpret what's going on and call the old lady and are like, "I'm gonna kill you." Oh, wrong number. Like, those sorts of moments are really fun, and this is when I think the Luther character, especially when he like gets to work with others, his other siblings, especially like Diego, works really, really well. Which brings us to number 2, Diego, who sports an interesting haircut in this second season. I do like the longer hair, almost everyone seems to have. Diego, we started with Diego, what I thought was really interesting in the mental asylum where he also meets Lila, and I thought that was really, really interesting. I almost wanted him to stay longer in the asylum because I thought that was a very interesting setting. But of course he has to get out of there, and of course he's the one who's like, JFK's gonna get killed and I have to save him. He was a bit too annoying at times, I have to say, with I have to save JFK and everything. The repetition in that is I have to save JFK is basically the I got sent to the moon of this season, this repetition. And there were points there where I was like, Diego, just shut up, man. We understood it. We know you want to save JFK. But he was sometimes even saying it, but I'm like, dude, do you not get it? You know JFK has to die, so why do you still want to save him? So that was a bit annoying at times. But I do like that in general, Diego gets a lot of focus in this second season, which is also connected to his relationship with Lila. And once again, I have to say, why does Diego get, like, useless relationship with girls I'm not interested in? Which was already the case in season 1, where he had this relationship with the police lady. And now he has the relationship with Lila. And when he was saying towards, like, the end of the season, because I love her and that's why I have to save her, I'm like, why do you love each other? You've known each other for, I'm presuming a bit longer because they've been at the asylum together, but we don't really see their friendship/relationship hit it off until, like, when they try to escape together. And I was like, why do these two love each other? I just didn't feel it. Which is not to say that the actors don't have chemistry. They do, and they do make for a nice couple. But I just didn't really understand why these two, like, how they fell in love, how that happened. I just didn't really buy it, so to speak. And I just wanted Diego to not be involved in another useless relationship storyline again. But it happened, and it's basically, it's not his entire storyline in this second season, but it's a big part of his storyline in this second season. I already mentioned, though, that especially in regards to Luther, I like him taking this sort of leadership role and fighting and trying to figure out what's going on. I like that we get to see him in the Time Commission this time. I thought it was quite interesting, though I was a bit surprised when once he got back, he started talking about, I understand the Time Commission and I worked for them and etc, etc. And I was like, you've been there for, like, what, a day, 2? And you basically ran out of there as soon as you could. Why is he pretending like he's been working for them for eons, whereas there's 5 who has literally worked for them for eons? So, but I guess that's also been part of the Diego character, which we also see again in this season, I think, where he's, he likes to boast a bit and he likes to talk big about being a hero and doing cool stuff and the things he's learned and everything. There are some neat moments, I think, with Diego in regards to the family dynamics, especially when they go and meet their father. Like, this whole scene when they all sit at a table and they're talking to their father and they're trying to convince him, we're your kids from the future and the apocalypse is going to happen, etc., etc. And, Diego has this moment where he tries to convince his father of what's going on, and his father basically just completely rips this hero facade away from him and, sort of calls him out on this personality where it's like, you have a hero complex and you don't actually know what you're doing and you're actually this kind of person, etc., etc. And Diego's starter came back for, like, a second, which was such a neat little detail. I'm glad they didn't forget about this. And moments like these, I think, work really well for Diego. Also, when he gets to talk to his mother again, who is like his real mother this time, you know, and not the android he was used to in season 1. And I think those moments are really heartwarming, but also kind of like bittersweet in a way, because, you know, what happens to the mother in season 1, and, you know, that Diego can't really convince of what's going on or what's happening. Though we do kind of see that coming in later when the mother does question Mr. Hargreeves, which I think is interesting because I liked seeing the dad a bit more. I'm going to talk about him a bit more later. But yeah, Diego, I think, was, at least for me, worked a bit better in this season, because he has some neat little emotional moments, especially in regards to like how he works as a person, and how he sees himself in regards to his father and his other siblings. Did not really enjoy the whole relationship stuff with Lila and what all that was about. It was still well acted, and I don't mind it being that. I just didn't really get much from it. Let's move on to number 3, to Allison, who I actually really liked in season 1. I know some people have said that she was also not a good sibling, and she was very manipulative towards Vanya especially, and she didn't really have a lot of stuff to do in season 1, which I didn't really agree with. Like, I really liked the character, especially in regards to her talking to Vanya and everything. This time she's not as much connected to Vanya, but she does have a moment with her. In general, I think I really enjoyed Allison's storyline, how she gets involved within local politics, and I think that works really, really well for her character, because it really seems like something she would be very invested in the civil rights movement and everything, and the sit-in, which, you know, is a nice little touch there, because it's historically accurate and everything, and especially in regards to what's going on nowadays, especially in America. I think that worked really, really well, although, you know, I'm pretty sure they didn't really know about that this would be so relevant now. But, you know, it worked, and that I think that was interesting to watch. Allison is now married to Ray, I think his name was, who is okay, I guess. I think he suffers from the same problem I have with a bunch of secondary characters. It's that he's just there all of a sudden and connected to one of the main characters, and I'm supposed to care about him right away, but I just don't. I really like the actor though. I think he does a good job, and I think Ray does get some good moments, especially when he starts becoming suspicious of what Allison is doing, when he's like, what did you say to that cop so that he would let me go? And he starts thinking she's a mole and is there to like invade their plans and everything. That was really neat, because again, that was the drama. I like the drama. That was really cool. I like that we see Allison here once again trying to juggle, you know, normal life and her powers, and I really like that we see how dangerous her powers can get and why she does not want to use them. The first time she does is it immediately raises suspicion for Raymond, and I like that we see later once she tells him what's going on, and it's all fun at first, and when they go shopping and she's like, I heard a rumor that you let my husband try on anything in the shop. You know, that's all fun and cute, but then we see how it just becomes too much and it all becomes too exaggerated, especially when they like go to the diner and she says, pour some coffee for me, and it just burns the man's hand off, which granted he probably deserves, but still, I think it's very interesting to see how Allison and her powers work, because I think you can see really well why she doesn't really want to use them. I read somewhere as an analogy that it maybe is sort of like a drug thing almost for her, that she doesn't want to use it because she knows how quickly she gets addicted to the possibilities of her powers, that she could just do almost anything as soon as she starts saying stuff. But that is why she stays away from it, because she knows how over the top it can get, how quickly that can happen. And this is also why I guess she doesn't use her power a lot, because there are always sort of moments where you think like, oh, they're in danger. Why doesn't just Allison use her power? Why doesn't she just use her thing? And she doesn't. And I think you can see very well why in this season, because maybe there are people like Raymond who don't really know about that and then become suspicious, and she doesn't want that to happen. Or then later we see it can actually become really dangerous because she doesn't really know where to stop, which I think is really interesting. I would like to explore a bit further, that we see how far can Allison actually go with her power, but maybe in season 3 she's pushed into a situation where she really has to say something, but it becomes really, really dangerous. Because I think it's quite interesting that you have this character who has to pay so much attention to what she's saying when she says, I heard a rumor, etc. Which reminds me a bit of Kilgrave and Jessica Jones, who has this power where, anything he says could become true, and he has to be so careful that, especially when he was younger, he didn't really know what to say, but people would just hurt themselves. And I think there's a similar thing with Allison, where she's a good guy, and she doesn't really want to hurt anyone, but she may occasionally get put into a situation where she has to do that. So I would really like to see that explored further in season 3. Let's move on to number 4, my boy, Klaus. He's such a sweetheart, isn't he? He is absolutely adorable. Love the hair, by the way. I love the long hair. Yeah, once again, Klaus is just your absolute weird goofball who doesn't do a whole lot but weird stuff. He starts a cult, which seems like a very Klaus thing to do. But I think it's actually kind of interesting to see that he starts this cult more or less out of fun, or like without giving it much thought, but he quickly becomes aware of the fact that, oh, this is something I should not have started, and these people are getting really annoying, and I don't actually know what I'm talking about. Which leads to a couple of funny scenes, I think, throughout the second season, where he tries to get away from his disciples, but he can't really, and he's trying to tell them that he's a fraud, but they don't really understand what he's saying. A couple of funny moments there. For example, the scene when he got into prison and we got him in the prison cell and he has to talk to his disciple who was like really devoted to him, but at the same time we have Raymond there. It's such a cool scene. It's a lot of fun dialogue, which is on the one hand really smart, but on the one hand also just really, really funny. And it ends on such a Klaus note when Raymond says, oh, maybe you want to let your friend know that we are held here without any charges. And Klaus, like, as innocent as he is, he like just turns to the policeman and is like, is that true? It's just my sweet boy. I like that we see a slight development in his powers. I already mentioned in my review of the first season that he actually has in the comics also some sort of telekinesis power, which we do sort of see. But I like that they're hinting at it, that there's more. I'm going to talk about powers a bit later, because I had some thoughts on that as well. But we do see that, especially in regards to his relationship with Ben, we have some more exploration, also in regards to power, that Ben can actually possess Klaus and just wander around in his body and do his thing. Which again leads to a couple of funny moments, and I just really enjoy watching Klaus and Ben. That is such a cool relationship, which I think gets some good development here and there. I also like what they're doing with Ben, who I'm going to talk about in a second. So I like that they brought in some new stuff, but without disturbing, the chemistry we already had. And Klaus doesn't really do all that much, but he does have a very interesting little side story in regards to his previous boyfriend he had in season 1, when he travels back to the past and he meets the soldier and they become involved, but then he dies. I hope I remember his name correctly. Was it Dave? Was it David? It was Dave, wasn't it? God, I'm so bad with names. Yeah, and he basically goes to look him up. I did not see this coming at all, because I admit I almost completely forgot about the whole storyline that happened. But yeah, when they go to that, I think it's a hardware store, and we realize it basically at the same moment as Ben that Klaus wants to see Dave, and this is just such a horrible idea, but it's also so understandable why he's doing it. And you're just sitting there thinking, Dave doesn't actually really know what's going on, but we do, and it's just heartbreaking, and you can just see how hard Klaus is trying, you know? And when they get this moment in the diner, and Dave is sitting there with his uncle or something, and it basically results in Klaus getting called a bunch of homophobic terms, and he gets punched in the face by Dave. And I can totally understand why that is the moment when Klaus just falls off the wagon again and just completely loses it. I think that's a wonderful idea to have this in there. Character development wise, I felt really bad for the man when that happened, but you know, it was a good character moment, and I didn't expect Dave to come back later to compound and be like, I don't actually really know what's going on, but I feel like I need to talk to you, and they have this sweet moment, and Klaus is actually trying to like convince him from the future, this is your dog tag, I know what happens in the future. But because I didn't expect Klaus to do that, he would be like, yeah, you know, I got the thing, and I know it hasn't happened yet, but it is gonna happen, and I want to help you. He just like puts it all out there and tries to prevent it from happening, but Dave is just too unsure about everything that's going on. And I thought that was a really, really neat little side storyline, which again I think gives a lot of character and a lot of personality to Klaus, who is most of the time just like the comic relief and the goofball and there to like interact with Ben. But I think storylines like these work really well because then we see how deep he actually can be as a person and how many layers there are to his character. Let's talk about the boy. Number 5. Number 5 was kind of like a secret favorite of mine, which is weird to say. In season 1, yes, I absolutely adore this boy, and I absolutely adore the actor who plays him because he does such a good job of portraying an old man in a kid's body. You just buy it. You just buy everything this boy says. And he isn't really that much different from season 1, which I don't have a problem with at all because I just love watching him. It's great to see that 5 is still at this point where he's like, I gotta boss everyone around. Everyone is an absolute idiot. No one knows what to do. I should just go home and leave everyone alone. But at the same time, you just know that he really like cares about his family and wants to get everyone home. And I like that we see a bit more of this. That we see how much he actually cares for them. That he immediately is like, okay, I gotta find everyone. We gotta save the world. I gotta save my siblings. I have to work this out. And again, I like how much of a leadership role he's taking. I already mentioned that I like it, especially like if we have this trio of like Luther, Diego, and 5. I think that works really well. I like that we have a lot of interactions between 5 and Diego this time around, because I don't think that they have that much to do with each other in season 1. So I like that we get this new sort of chemistry working in the second season, which I think works really well, especially later on once Diego has been to the Time Commission and he has this connection to Lila and the Handler. I think it works really well when he then later talks to 5 and they sort of share this understanding of what's actually going on. I like 5 how desperate he is to a certain degree, especially when he like talks to the Handler and we just see how hard he's trying to just work this thing out. And we see that he really just doesn't want to have anything to do with the Handler, but he just has to. And the desperation sadness he gets when he figures out that he's been set up and that it just can't work for him. I just like that there's always this underlying feeling of desperation within 5 where, you know, he has this front of being very hard-boiled and, you know, I don't care about anything, that sort of thing, but he actually really, really does, and he doesn't want to admit that he has a hard time figuring things out or, you know, finding a plan, but you can feel it, you know, you can just feel it. And we even get to see like the older 5 properly in the second season. We had a glimpse at him in season 1, and we see him in season 2, which I think is a neat idea, which is why I like time travel stories, that we get these sort of moments where a younger 5 meets an older 5, and the fight they have I thought was quite cool and funny. Though I have to say, the actor who plays the older 5, I just didn't really, there was something missing. I didn't really entirely buy that he was 5. Which granted, he is theoretically a bit younger, but not that much younger. But he just didn't have the same, energy. There was, which, is hard to do because the actor who plays 5 does such a good job, and he's been at it for like a longer time. And now this older actor has to come in and basically play the same person, but just didn't really work. I like the scenes when the two 5s are together, but you just know that the younger version is so much more authentic than the older version. Okay, number 6. Let's briefly talk about Ben. I already mentioned a lot of stuff with him when I talked about Klaus. I like Ben. I'm glad he's around. I'm gonna talk about that ending in a second. I like that Ben is the one who, towards the end of the season, he's the one who basically saves the world, and he's the one who can only connect to Vanya, because he's just like there in spirit, and he can go into her mind basically and connect with her. That was really, really well done. And that scene when he's like, I got to go, and Klaus wasn't actually the one who like kept me here. I just wasn't ready, but now I am, and can you please hug me one last time? And I was like, dude, don't do that to me. That was actually really, really sweet and emotional when Ben and Vanya hugged. So sweet. I cried a bit even, I'm gonna be honest, I cried a bit. Yeah, and apart from that, I mean, what else has Ben doing? He has this crush on that one girl in Klaus's cult, which, is a thing that happens, and then he finds out that Klaus and the girl already had sex at some point, and it's weird. And we have this one episode where Klaus gets possessed by Ben, which I think is fun. Is a nice idea. I wish they had done a bit more with it. Like they do hint at it throughout the first couple of episodes in season 2, and then they like do it for like one full episode. But then Klaus basically like, okay, no, we're not gonna do that again. It does lead to quite some funny moments when Ben is possessing Klaus, though. At the same time, I have to say, as much as I like the Klaus actor, he's just not Ben, which is understandable because he's not used to playing that character because he's not that actor. And when Ben was possessing Klaus, it was a bit hard to see Ben, that actually being Ben. You know what I mean? It didn't last for that long, and I thought it was actually quite funny when he goes talk to the girl, and we do actually see, which I thought was a nice shot when they embrace, and we have this shot of, we see Ben and the girl, but then we also see Klaus and the girl. I thought it was neatly done. There's this cute little moment shortly after when Jago comes in, and he at first doesn't believe him, but then Ben says, no, it's really me. I'm Ben, and I'm going to tell you something only Ben would know. And Jago just, his eyes like light up a bit, but also with sadness, and he's like, oh my god, it's really you, which is so sweet. I wish we had more moments like these when the siblings got to sort of interact with Ben, because Klaus is usually the only one who can see Ben, and he tells them ghosts can't time travel. Which, why would they buy that? I mean, they all know that Ben would probably be there, especially since Klaus continuously talks to Ben, like off to the side. But I'm glad we got a few little moments where Ben got to interact with some of the other siblings that I thought was really, really sweet. And just to quickly mention it, at the very end, we see, as I already dubbed him, Emo Ben, which is going to be interesting because I think that's a neat idea that we still get to keep the actor and some version of Ben, that we still got him around, which I think is good. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Emo Ben, or Evil Ben, or whatever, is going to be up to. Okay, let's move on to our last sibling, dear sweet number 7, Vanya. I love Vanya so much. And Boom! Queer Vanya confirmed. I guess we all had our thoughts already, but it's out there. Bisexual Vanya. I'm here for it. I love it. And the chemistry between these two actresses, amazing. Like the first scene Vanya and Sissy have, you just immediately feel like there's something going on. They in love. They definitely in love. Yeah, so that was amazing chemistry. I absolutely adore the storyline. I think that was my favorite storyline throughout this season. So what we get to see with Vanya and the family at the farm, and yeah, I'm a bit of a sucker for like sort of coming out stories, which is especially works here for Sissy, for the girlfriend, who lives in a time where this wasn't allowed and you couldn't really be yourself, and she discovers herself through Vanya and through this relationship, which I think is really, really sweet and interesting to explore. And I was really, really sad when she said, "I can't come with you because it just wouldn't work, and I can't be sure that we wouldn't get attacked again, and I have to protect my boy," which is absolutely understandable. But I still wanted them to come with Vanya. Like, just let my girl be happy. God damn it. Yeah, but that was a very sweet storyline. I like the son like Holland. He I think is a neat little secondary character we get, who does a lot without saying anything, which is cool. And I like his connection to Vanya, which I at first completely missed out on. Like, because I completely forgot about the Vanya like breathed stuff into him, power into him, and then when it got towards the end of the second season, I'm like, what? Why is Harland freaking? Oh yeah, that was a thing. That was a thing, which I at first I thought was a bit pointless because it's just there to have a secondary climax. But the more I think about it, since we see at the end that Harland still has some of the powers apparently, because we see him do the thing with the bird, and a lot of people have already theorized that he might be connected to the Sparrow Academy we see towards the end, because it's a bird he's playing with, could be a sparrow, and maybe he has some sort of connection to Daddy Hargreeves and then the Sparrow Academy. Maybe he helps him set it up, or I don't know. I would actually be really up for this, because I think Harlan has a lot of potential as a character, and would be interesting to see how Vanya would react to him in season 3. So I would like to see that. But yeah, back to Vanya. I really like Vanya. A lot of people have, well, a bunch of people have complained that Vanya is so much different because she doesn't really remember a lot of stuff, and thus she isn't really the same person she was in season 1, which I honestly didn't really think at all. I thought it was still Vanya. It's just Vanya without, all the trauma, basically, without all the drugs she has to take. Though I have to admit, when I watched the first episode, I was like, really? We're going with amnesia and she doesn't remember anything? Well, okay, it just felt a bit cheap when I started watching, and I guess it works, but I wish they would have done more with it, because they're like, okay, she doesn't remember anything, but then she meets her siblings and like, oh, cool, I have siblings, and that's it. And then she interacts with them as if she's always known them, and she doesn't get her memory back until like the second half of the season. I just thought that the interaction she was having, especially with her siblings, should have been a bit different, especially if you take into consideration that she didn't know any of them, or at least didn't remember any of them. I just thought that they sort of threw this in there and then didn't really do anything with it, with the amnesia thing. Of course, it sort of works. It works as a reset button, but, I wish they would have done more with it. But in that regard, I think it works really well that we get to see Vanya without, like I said, any of the trauma and any of the memories. Because I think she's actually a very sweet girl, and I like that you see just how down to earth she actually is. Because, I just like watching. I've heard someone say it's just basically Ellen Page being Ellen Page, but even if I like Ellen Page, so I don't mind. And especially since since she now seems to have her powers under control, I think that's going to be interesting going into season 3, how she uses them, and what they're going to do with her. I already mentioned in the beginning that I think it was a bit, well, yeah, but I didn't really like it that she once again was going to be the trigger of the apocalypse. But I guess that's sort of the point that we rehash season 1. And it does lead to a very sweet moment between her and Ben, granted. But I hope they're going to do more with her than in season 3, because we already deal with, trauma, dysfunctional relationships, good relationships now in season 2, and her being the trigger for the apocalypse. That's all done now, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do with her in season 3. There's just so much potential, I think, especially with the Vanya character, and I really, really like watching her, so I'm looking forward to seeing what they will do with her. Okay, and now just like a couple of little side things and thoughts that I had already mentioned. I wanted to talk about powers, because I already mentioned in my season 1 review that was like there are actually more powers in the comic books, and I hope that they would explore these different kinds of powers going into season 2, which they do a bit, but not that much really. I like that we see Diego like doing the proper projectile thing, that he's not just good at throwing knives, but that he's actually able to like read other projectiles, and that's why he's so good at throwing everything. That scene when he just like basically does the Neo from the Matrix thing and stops the bullets and then ricochets them to the side, that was really cool. I want to see more of that stuff. The possession with Ben and Klaus was cool. Ben is now gone, but maybe we see some kind of version of that possession stuff coming back. I already mentioned Vanya's basically in complete control of her power now, so we'll see how that comes in. I mean, Luther is still Luther. He's strong. He's not really doing that much with it. And Allison, like I said, I want to see how much Allison can actually do. That would be interesting to explore. There is this great opening to episode 1 when we see all of them coming in, doing the basic Avengers superhero stuff, being super badass and seeing all their powers. And that's all we get. We get some cool moments, like for example with Klaus, like just a whole ghost army calling it in, or running we get like one hint at that towards the end of the season, where he gets caught, I think, by 2 ghosts. And that's it. I want to see more of the exploration of the powers. Like I said, Klaus has some sort of telekinesis thing in the comics where he can like fly all the time. But we get sort of a hint at that, but it's actually Ben lifting Klaus up. But I guess that was a bit of a hint at that. I want to see that explored more. I honestly think they could do more with these powers, because there's so much more potential from what there is in the comic books and from what they could just come up with, basically. Since they all seem to dab into their potential, especially like Diego, Klaus, and Vanya, there's so much more they could do there, and I just want them to explore their powers. Maybe they even have like a sort of training session. I don't know, especially since they're now apparently coming up against, I'm guessing, alternate versions of themselves, or an alternate superhero group, the Sparrow Academy, which I guess is gonna call for, more extreme powers, more badassery and all that. So yeah, at the end of season 2, we see the setup for season 3 where they're like, oh, Dad is still alive. Okay. Which I think is cool, because I really like the Dad character. From just like a character point of view, I think he's really, really interesting, and he has some very fascinating conversations and moments throughout this season. So I'm glad they reused his character, and the actor, who I think does a fantastic job at just being this snobby, pretentious, abusive twat. And now he's alive. We get to see more of him, which I think is going to be interesting, how the siblings are all going to react to that. Also, I like that we full on see now that this man is an alien. I know they already mentioned it in season 1, but I like that we full on see it get a almost full on murder from Mr. Hargreeves, which I think is cool. I love moments like those. Yeah, but now we have to set up with, Daddy Hargreeves still being alive and Sparrow Academy and emo, evil Ben being there, which, makes sense since we got so many diversions from like timeline. They only did like minor things maybe, but they all got involved in some historical events to a certain degree, so of course things would become different. So it's going to be interesting to see if like Daddy Hargreaves just adopted different siblings, or if they are like alternate versions, or if the Umbrella Academy is still a thing, but it's an entirely different academy, and the Sparrow Academy is its own thing. It's going to be interesting because it seems to imply that Daddy Hargreaves like met his kids in the past and saw them and was like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna adopt those kids, they suck. Which, is just Daddy Hargreaves being Daddy Hargreaves. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting potential setup for season 3, I think. I guess they're not going to do the apocalypse thing again since that's dealt with now, which I think is good because I don't want to rehash that storyline. But I like this opening of there might be alternate timelines and or alternate dimensions or alternate versions. This is what I love about time travel, that you can explore stuff like this. And I think it's going to be interesting, especially now since the siblings have Ben back in a sort of way, and they get to see what he would be like as an adult, but in a different version, which I think is going to be especially tough for Klaus and maybe also Vanya, since they had such a deep connection with Ben. So yeah, I don't even really want to speculate too much about season 3. I guess they're gonna go into obviously the third volume of the comic book, so we'll see how much they do of that. So yeah, to sum it all up, I did enjoy season 2, though I have to say I did not enjoy it as much as season 1. Whereas season 1 for me was like a 9 out of 10, season 2 for me is like a 7. It's still good, but it's just not the same level because we have the repetition of the basic plot, which, is the whole setup at the finale of season 1. I know, I get it, but it just was a bit too similar for me at certain points. There were characters in there who I just didn't really care for or did not care for enough, like Lila. Also, the Swedes didn't really work for me as like secondary antagonists. There was a lot of potential they didn't really always use, like with Hazel, they just killed them off right away. The relationship between Diego and Lila could have developed more interestingly or a bit better, it's still enjoyable. I think most people are going to enjoy the second season. I think it flows a bit better than season 1, because I remember when I watched season 1 for the very first time, there were like a couple of moments or a couple of episodes in the middle where I was like, it's dragging a bit, but season 2 really feels like one continuous movie you could just sit down and watch. Like I got through this really, really quickly, and it didn't feel like I just watched 10 episodes that were 45 minutes long. So that's good. The pacing is, I think, really well done. We get a bit more of world building with like the time commission, everything, which I hope is going to get explored even more in season 3. We have a lot of neat and interesting character moments, I think, in the second season, especially between siblings. We didn't really see interact that much in season 1, so I think that's good. I think fans are going to enjoy this second season. I think it's going to be like a matter of personal taste, whether or not you like this more or less than season 1. Like I said, I enjoyed season 1 a bit more because I just thought the general storyline was a bit more interesting to me. But that's not to say that I did that I thought season 2 was bad. I really liked season 2. I'm absolutely looking forward to seeing what is going to happen in season 3, and I think the Umbrella Academy is a great addition to like the superhero genre because it doesn't feel like cliche, stereotypical superhero storylines, because there's a lot more focus on like the individuality of the characters, and it's not necessarily all about the superpowers. It's still about saving the world, but it feels a bit more personal. So I think for people who are maybe not really that much into the superhero genre could still really enjoy a series like the Umbrella Academy. Okay, so this is it for my rambling review. I hope you enjoyed it. What are your thoughts on the Academy, Umbrella Academy season 2? That's what it's called. Put your thoughts down in the comments below. I would love to hear from you, or what your thoughts and theories are in regards to like a possible, well, it is going to happen, season 3. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little review. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done that already. And I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.